All right. Welcome to Beethoven of the Ukulele, episode 4.8. I skipped episodes 4.6 and 4.7. My excuse was I was overwhelmed with things that were happening in the world, but really I was just kind of overwhelmed with the project as well. I hit what Seth Godin calls the dip. I didn't feel a lot of motivation, but now I think I'm okay, ready to continue and ready to carry on with this project and finish out the fourth movement and do the fifth movement and perform the whole symphony. All right, so this movement, also another reason why I was kind of reluctant to put out videos is because the transcription is very difficult. It's much harder than the transcriptions that I did for the first movement, second movement, and third movement. I'm using a lot of different techniques with my right hand that I didn't use in those movements. And first, second, and third movements, I played everything with my thumb on my right hand. But in this movement, I'm going to incorporate some varieties of tremolo, both with my thumb and with other fingers as well. So tremolo, this is what Beethoven uses in the fourth movement of his Pastorale Symphony, which is, by the way, when you listen to the orchestral version of this, one of the most realistic depictions of a thunderstorm that I've heard in music, period. It's just quite amazing. And so what Beethoven often asks the string players to do is do a tremolo. And what a tremolo looks like on a string instrument, let's say you're playing a violin, is you move the bow back and forth like this very rapidly. So essentially you're repeating the same note over and over again at a very rapid tempo. A lot of other instrumentalists will try to do the same thing. Classical guitarists, for example, will do a rapid alternate or rapid repeating of notes by playing different fingers like that. Mandolinists, and I use this type of tremolo in this transcription as well, will often take their pick and go rapidly back and forth on a string like that. I will do that sometimes with my index finger and also sometimes with my thumb like that. Okay, so those are a couple of varieties of tremolo that I use. And another variety of tremolo that I use is something that I think was first introduced on the ukulele. It's similar to a lot of the rasqueado in like Spanish flamenco guitar, but the triplet strum is something that's a very effective tremolo. I use this for the passages where Beethoven seems to be depicting a torrent of rain coming down, a torrent of raindrops. So the way a triplet strum works is there are three components to it. I'll go index down, thumb down, and then index up. That's one variety of triplet strum. So index, thumb, index. 1, 2, 3. So 3 different notes. I repeat that over and over again. As you speed it up, you find you can just move your wrist and kind of shake your fingers and get that tremolo to happen. So let me demonstrate that by speeding it up a little bit. And when you get up to about this tempo with it, it sounds like a continuous series of notes. You don't really necessarily hear the individual triplet strums. So I'll use that sometimes with just the index and the thumb, and sometimes I'll incorporate other fingers as well to give it a more rough kind of a sound. Like maybe I'll fan out all the fingers on the first strike of whatever chord I'm changed to. So an example in the Pastorale Symphony in the fourth movement is the F minor chord, the first chord, where it sounds like, oh, this is serious. There's a lot of rain coming down. So this chord right here. So that's the kind of effect you can get with a triplet strum if you play it very quickly. All right, so what I wanted to do, like I said, this movement is quite hard, so I don't know if I'm going to bother this week to do a performance of it where I'm just sitting down and I'm all plugged in and I have the reverb and stuff. But what I think I will do instead is just walk you through all the pages that we have so far. So I have 8 of the 12 pages of this movement completed. And by the way, if you would like to follow along, you'd like to play this on your ukulele, and you're not already on my email list, go ahead and subscribe using the link down below in the video description. And I will send you pages of this transcription so you can try out the tablature yourself and try out these effects. So at the beginning of the fourth movement, actually let me back up for just a second. So in the Pastorale Symphony, Beethoven has the musicians play the third movement, And then the fourth movement begins what we call a tocca. So there's no pause in between movements. It goes directly from the third movement, which is the scherzo, the merry gathering of village folk, right into the thunderstorm. So let me play a little bit of what's happening at the end of the scherzo. So it's that jolly dance that's happening. All the villagers are reveling and having a good time. And then all of a sudden, you can hear thunder in the distance. And I used the thumb tremolo for that first note. It's very quiet, very ominous. And there's this little scale passage. And I've always imagined that that represents the villagers realizing that a storm's on the way, and they're quickly gathering all their belongings and everything, and they need to get inside somewhere to get shelter from this storm. Okay, then after we play that note, Beethoven gives us another tremolo. Again, it's very ominous, and I'm using the back and the pad of my thumb to play this tremolo. Then another series of scale passage. And then there's another, this time I'm doing a tremolo on a complete chord. In this case, it's a D flat diminished chord. Okay, and that is right at the start of page 2 of the score. So I have this chord that I'm playing a tremolo with the side of my thumb, so it's very quiet. Then I move over to the back of my index finger and then get louder as I go into the next measure. Okay, then in measure 21, which is the last line on page 2 of the score, that's where I go into this F minor chord. And this represents, you know, a big burst of energy from the sky. So if you imagine now the rain is coming down and drenching all the villagers, and you can hear maybe lightning along with that. So I'm using the triplet strum right there. Okay, then on the next page, continuing page 2, arpeggiating an F minor chord. Then I have this chord, again using triplet strum. And then this is page 3 of the score, another series of arpeggios. And then another chord. In this case, it's an E flat diminished now. Then some arpeggios. And then I've always thought of these chords at the end of page 3 as, or the middle page 3, excuse me, as representing lightning bolts. And then finally that theme, that little tune that represents the villagers scattering, running for cover. And then here, continuation of that on page 4. Okay, now at this point, this is the last measures on the first line of page 4. I'm using a tremolo, but this time with the back of the index finger. And then we have a couple of lightning bolts. Here's a D flat chord. So I'm going to have to play it down here with my thumb. And then fan my fingers out in a very powerful rasqueado up here, then go back to the tremolo. Another chord. This is a G7. Then a C minor. Then on page 5, I imagine all of these as very powerful lightning bolts kind of mixed in with the rain pouring down very continuously. Okay, and then we have the villagers scattering theme. Whoops. Okay, Okay, so all of that scale passage that I just played down in the first, around the first position and up at the fourth position, I fingered that in a campanella fingering. So if you look at page 5 of the score, that's what we call the osseous staff. So that is the staff that's directly below as an alternative to the original transcription. So and then I fingered that in a campanella fingering there. And then I have a tremolo here, and this is a tremolo with the pad of the thumb. And it sounds like, as it goes from that chord to a D major chord, like there's a calm in the middle of the storm right there. This is page 6 now. And then we have this chord, it's getting a little bit louder. B flat minor chord. And then a G diminished. Sorry, not a G, an A flat diminished. And then when I get up to the top, this is measure 78. And this is in the second line of page 7 of the score. I'm going to go back to that triplet strum again. Up here at the top, and the harmony here is pretty amazing. This is a G7 chord, C minor, and then this one is A flat chord. So all of that represents a lot of rain coming down. And as you can see, that's kind of a challenge to play that entire passage with triplet strums. So let me try it. And I was sort of talking through it, but let me just play that whole thing without talking very much through so you can hear what it's eventually going to sound like. I'm still working on it. Keep that in mind. So. So at that point, Beethoven goes back to that villagers scattering sort of theme again. So and I do this up here. And you can see what I did there. So I have this, I call this a rasqueado. I'm fanning out all of my fingers across the strings to represent like a thunderclap or something. Okay, and then here, this is on page 8, measure 91, up, down with my index finger. Then I play the rest of this with my thumb. Whoops, that's going to be that fret. And then at this point, Beethoven goes into some swirling chromatic lines that represent, I guess, the wind blowing, a howling wind. All right, so that's the end of page 8, and that's as far as I've gotten so far. I think what I'm going to try to do right now, this will be really rough, but I'm going to play the whole thing just straight through, and whatever mistakes I make, that's fine. If you catch them, let me know in the comments. All right, so this is fourth movement of, actually I'm going to do the end of the third movement, a tocca into the fourth movement of Beethoven's Pastorale Symphony, transcribed for solo ukulele, the first 8 pages. right, so the end of that page 8 clearly needs some work, but thank you for watching if you watch this to the end. And consider subscribing to my channel, like this, and leave some comments if you like. Hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I will talk to you again next week. Take care.